going to do breath work for complex PTSD. So for those of us who've experienced complex PTSD, often the breath is at the very top of the body. And many of us will even hold our shoulders up here and we'll get tension in the upper part of the body. So we have this feeling of being in a state of hyper-vigilance. The adrenals are constantly on overload, and much of our energy will go up to the top part of the body. That means that often our breath is up at the top part of the lungs as well. And many of us, we don't even know what it feels like to breathe from the belly or to utilize all of the lungs, in order to calm down the breath and calm down the central nervous system and just help us be present and comfortable in our world. So today we're going to focus on, it's called the 3-part yoga breath. We're going to learn about the 3 different parts of the lungs. The upper part of the lung, the middle part of the lung, the bottom part of the lung. We're going to breathe from there, and we're also going to feel the belly rise and fall. This will reduce anxiety, and it will calm the central nervous system, and you'll also notice a beautiful response in the body too. So let's dive right in to the 3-part yoga breath. Okay, first we'll take a seated posture, and I often speak about letting the spine rise in authenticity. So it's not a wooden feeling, it's not an inauthentic feeling. Instead, we just sit sweetly with some pelvic floor power or pelvic floor stability, lower belly, core stability. And from there, just allow the spine to rise authentically. We're also going to drop the head of the arm bones down a little bit. You can take a few shoulder rolls and just feel what it feels like to drop the head of the arm bones down a bit rather than have them up here. We're going to just drop them down, let them be filled with ease. And the palms can rest on your upper thighs, palms up. That's a very receptive quality. Let's begin by breathing normally. Just so close your eyes and begin to feel your regular breath, what you would consider to be the regular breath, how you normally breathe. And feel the energy that's carried on the breath. So we're not analyzing the breath. Instead, we're feeling the energy that's carried on the breath. And from here, we're going to start the base breath for a yoga practice. It's called Ujjayi breath. And in Ujjayi breath, we breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And you'll begin to feel the breath like the waves of the ocean, like a tide coming in, or the waves coming in to the ocean shore and the waves moving out. So we'll breathe. In breath and out breath, in through the nose, out through the nose. And as you exhale, exhale out completely, and you'll notice the in-breath will rush in with greater enthusiasm. And the in-breath will also be easier when you exhale completely, when you get all that dusty stuff out at the end of the exhale. The in-breath will be easier, more natural, and there'll be a sense of vitality with the in-breath. So we're going to take 3 more Ujjayi breaths, breathing in through the nose, letting the belly rise and fall as you breathe. And on the out breath, you'll feel the very end of the exhale, the dusty stuff at the end of the exhale. It'll go out, and then there'll be this natural return to the breath. The in-breath will be just awesome. And we're going to start with this base for our 3-part yogic breath. Now again, we'll take an in-breath, and at the end of your next exhale, exhale out completely, and then in-breath, to the count of 4 through the upper part of the lungs, the upper 1/3 of the lungs. And pause very briefly. And then in-breath, the middle part of the lungs to the count of 4. And then pause briefly. And then in-breath, the very bottom part of the lungs, filling the bottom part of the lungs, pause briefly, and then we'll exhale again. Exhale out the bottom third of the lungs, pause briefly. Exhale out the middle 1/3 of the lungs, pause briefly. And exhale out the top third of the lungs, and pause briefly. And we're going to continue in our own rhythm, recognizing that each of us has a unique count. So the idea is to, again, in-breath the top third of the lungs and pause briefly. In-breath the middle part, the middle 1/3 of the lungs, and pause briefly. And then in-breath again the lower third of the lung, the bottom third of the lungs, pause briefly. And then exhale out the bottom third of the lungs, pause. Exhale the middle 1/3 of the lungs and pause. And exhale the top 1/3 of the lungs. And again, pause, and we'll continue in this rotation. And again, I'm going to ask you to keep count. Sometimes when I keep count, I just utilize a gentle tapping of the finger. Or sometimes I'll be counting silently in my mind. So utilize a count that works nicely with the rhythm of your breath. There's nothing to be anxious about. You don't have to worry about doing it perfectly. You keep in this rotation the rounds of in-breath 1/3, upper part, middle part, lower breath, lower third of the lungs, and then out-breath, lower third, pause, middle section, pause, and then the upper 1/3, exhaling completely. And again, continue in this rotation. Don't worry about it being perfect. Those days are gone. Feel your breath. Feel the pause between the thirds. Dive into that feeling of the pause. And quiet the mind. The more you feel the breath, the more you feel the pause, the more you feel the rise and fall of the belly, the quieter you'll become. The central nervous system will calm. And anxiety is just gently releasing, settling, dissolving. Keep with this rotation of the breath, 3-part yogic breath. Focusing on feeling rather than thinking. Again, let it be authentic. No need to do things perfectly. And we're going to take one more round. I'll guide you through the final round. Exhale out completely. Get all the dusty stuff out. And then in-breath, 1/3, pause. In-breath, middle third, pause. In-breath, low, bottom part of the lungs, including the belly, pause. Exhale, bottom third, and pause. Exhale, middle third, and pause, and feel that pause. Exhale, all the way out. And let the breath again rush in with ease on the in-breath. Now breathe here with your belly. Utilize the belly breathing. It's like a Buddha belly. The Buddha is often shown with this beautiful belly. So you're utilizing the belly, and it rises and falls. And maybe you can feel your diaphragm muscle as you breathe with the eyes closed. The diaphragm muscle that assists the lungs. On the in-breath, the diaphragm will move down. On the out-breath, the diaphragm gently rises. Again, just continue to feel the breath, feel the diaphragm, feel the belly. This is a beautiful centering breath that can help reduce anxiety, calm the central nervous system, and bring you to a state of better clarity. The 3-part yogic breath. Return to your normal breath now and feel. Feel the vitality that's carried on the breath. And from here, we're now ready to move on with our day, or perhaps you're going to rest for the evening. We're ready to move on to our next activity with a greater sense of ease. We'll close with the sound of Om.